Hey everybody, welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Crys'Dawna. If you are new here, hit the subscribe button. If you're not new here, welcome back, friends and family. I realize I say that every time. I don't have a script, it's just something that I do because I really do want to say welcome back, and if you're new here, come hang out with me more. Anyway, we are going to be making over this sideboard right here. This is for a client. We're going to do something kind of fresh. We're gonna do something a little bit light, do some blends of some blues and greens. We're going to be using Country Chic today, and this color is, let's make sure this is closed. This is gonna be the base color. It's fairly light, but we have a couple ideas. My client has an idea to do some earth tones maybe in here to kind of bring this out. We're just gonna play it by ear because I don't really have a total plan for this, but if you guys wanna see this, stay here. The first thing I did was clean this piece super well before we went in with our Country Chic paint. I also flipped it upside down so that way I can make sure there's paint on it, and I also put some felt pads so that way it would slide a little bit easier. The floors here are not carpeted, so it'll be easier for my client to move it around. I am using Country Chic and Happy Hour, and I'm gonna put 2 coats of this on the entire piece, but I flipped it upside down and it makes it easier for me to get the bottom, and I like to get the lips underneath the panels. I just like it to be, it's me probably going a little bit more overboard because I deliver my pieces, or when they're flipped and I'm delivering them, I like it to look nice underneath. So it's just probably an ism of mine, not necessarily something you have to do. I just like everything to look complete. Once I was done with the bottom, I flipped it over and I put 2 coats of Happy Hour on this entire piece. We are gonna blend and layer, and I always put down a base coat or 2 coats of my base color, just so that I have something good to work with, and that way I can visualize everything. And then that way when I start blending stuff, it's not going to work its way back to the original finish. It's just going to work that particular base coat that I'm putting on. The factory finish on this was a weathered oak finish. So I'm going to remove that from the top because I'm gonna do cerused oak finish on here. So I'm taking a chemical stripper and I'm going to strip that off. It's not a very thick layer for the factory finish, so it's not gonna take much to take it off. I have my plastic scooper that you guys see me use all the time. You can see right here the original finish underneath. But I'm gonna take that all off, and then I'm going to pour mineral spirits on it and scrub that with a 3M pad to get any residue off and to just help me get the rest of the factory finish off because it's just a thin layer. I did not sand this piece. What I'm gonna do is take a wire brush and I'm going to deepen the grain. I'm gonna go with the wood grain and I am going to deepen that grain, remove whatever debris is in the deep oak grain. Now, I've had people say before, you're gonna ruin the piece, and it was like this was too harsh on it, but I'm gonna show you right here. All this does is it deepens the grain. It doesn't scratch the wood. So you can see right here, all the wood that is deepened, or all the grain that's deepened, and it's not scratched. So that is what you want. You want a deep grain in order to get this finish. My client wanted the top to be gray, so we are taking Pebble Beach and we are going to put a little bit of water in here to thin it out because I don't want it to fill that grain that I just deepened. So I'm going to put a little bit in a separate container. I'm gonna water it down. I want it to have full coverage, but not to the point where it is going into the grain and filling it, because what we're gonna do is after this is fully dry, we are gonna take a white wax and put it over the piece, and that will fill the wood grain and give us a cerused finish. Now remember, Country Chic is an all-in-one paint, so this is going to self-seal anyway, and then with me putting the wax on top of it, that's gonna be an extra layer of protection. Now, if my client was going to have this be heavy usage, I would have sealed in between the layers of wax and paint, but it's not. So just know what your client is going to use it for and know how to seal it. But if you did seal it, you'd want to do super thin layers so that it doesn't fill that grain. So right now what I'm doing is I am applying the white wax on this piece, and I'm going to go with the grain first, and then I'm going to go in circles, and then I'm going to go in the opposite direction so that I can really make sure that this wax gets really nice into that grain. When you wipe this away, you want to wipe it in the opposite direction of the wood grain, so that way it pushes that wax into the wood grain. And you don't want to go with the wood grain when you're doing this because it's going to pull that wax out of that deepened grain. You want to do it in the opposite direction, and then you want to give it time so that it can dry and set, and that way it becomes another layer of protection. We're going to start layering and blending, and I'm going to use Wanderess, we're going to use Nightfall, we're going to use Happy Hour, and we're going to use Vanilla Frosting. Now, I didn't really use Nightfall that much, so you could probably omit that color, but the other three we're going to use a lot. So the first thing that I did is I'm going to mist the entire piece, and then I'm going to outline all the areas that I want some darkened shading with the color Wanderess. So when you're doing this, generally I use a brush for each color. You're going to want a mister bottle. You're going to want a rag to clean off your brushes if they cross-contaminate too much. And I also use a clean, dry, neutral brush, and for that I'm going to use the Dusty, which is a brush by Paint Pixie. I like to use that to do all my blending. Once I'm done placing Wanderess everywhere that I want some shading, I am going to layer over that with Happy Hour. I am going to mist it. This is a clay all-in-one paint, and so you want to make sure that you keep the area, you want this to have moisture on it because clay-based paints will dry a little bit faster. So I always just keep the mister bottle on hand, and what I'm doing is I'm just going over everything with Happy Hour. I'm going to mist it, and then I'm going to take the Vanilla Frosting anywhere that I want more of a highlighted look, and I'm going to go over that. Usually I do that in the center of areas, and then once I'm done adding that, I'm going to mist it really well, and I'm going to take that Dusty brush, and I am just going to go horizontally, vertically, going to go in circles, and that is going to bring everything together and just blend it really nice. Now you see I have my rag. I wipe off that brush every so often just because I want to make sure I get any excess paint off of there, because we really want to keep this a clean, dry, neutral brush. And by doing that, taking the rag and wiping it off, it kind of keeps it more of a neutral and doesn't pull any of one particular color on that brush. So you're going to continue to mist it, and you're going to just lightly feather it in a bunch of different directions. This, again, is a clay-based paint, so it blends beautifully. It's going to reconstitute, which means it's going to reactivate with water. So you don't have to worry about the pieces down at the bottom, the paint down at the bottom. If it dries a little bit, once you mist that with water, it's going to be okay. Now, Country Chic is an all-in-one paint, so once it's totally dry, it's going to start curing. So you can't come back to this tomorrow and blend it. Some clay-based paints you can do that, but this one you can't. It's not going to reconstitute once it really starts drying and curing. So when you're going to blend with this, you need to make sure that you are ready to blend with it at that given time. But again, it is really easy to blend with. I hope that makes sense. After I was done blending and it dried thoroughly, I distressed this piece. And I also wanted to go over everything to smooth it. So I took my 3x4 electric ray, and this is a 10mm pad. It's a fine pad. And what this is gonna do is it's gonna smooth the paint out. It's going to add just a little bit of distressing in certain areas. And it's gonna expose a little bit of the layers underneath. So that way we have a blended, layered look. We are not done yet. This piece to the right, I have used wax to shade and deepen the colors. And so I'm gonna show you how to do that on the left-hand side. So the first thing I'm gonna do is take the black wax by Country Chic, and I am going to add that in all the corners and on the top of the piece where it is ornate, because we want to deepen this. But we don't want it as dark as it's going to look here in a second. So what I'll do after I apply all of the wax is I'm going to wipe it back with a microfiber cloth. And then what I'm gonna do is take the clear wax, and we're gonna use that as an eraser to erase some of the darker areas, to create a shaded effect, and to lighten up that black wax. We have now applied the black wax and we have wiped it back. So now I'm going to take the clear wax and I'm going to go over everywhere that I want to remove that black wax. So this acts as an eraser for any kind of colored waxes that you're going to use. So don't freak out. It is okay. I'm going to show you how to use clear wax to pull colored wax off. We're going to just lightly go over everything, and I'm going to take a microfiber cloth and I'm going to start rubbing the areas that I want to remove that black wax a little bit more. And you can already see it starting to lighten up. Now, what you can do too, if you want to continuously remove more of the colored wax, you can take that rag and you can actually dip that or rub that into the wax and then put that directly in the area that you want to take off. So you can either apply that wax with a rag or a brush, but either way, you're going to be able to remove colored wax by using the clear wax. Hopefully that all makes sense to you guys. How many times can I say the word wax? The last thing that I did is I took the Decor wax in Eternal by Redesign with Prima, and I'm going to lightly kind of do a dry brush over this to add just one more layer of dimension and bring everything together for one final little glimmer of gold. Now that I have done all of the areas with dark wax, I want to show you how when you apply your clear wax to a clay-based paint, it will deepen the color a little bit. So what it looks like when it's dry, it's going to, once you seal it, it is going to deepen just a little bit. And so what I did is I applied the clear wax to the entire piece, and then what I do is wipe away the excess, and then I buff it with a microfiber cloth, and it buffs to a really nice, pretty sheen. All right, everybody, this piece is done. This video is done. I hope you enjoyed that. There's the piece. There are gonna be some final stage photos on here, so stay tuned. Everything I use is in the description below. Till next time, happy creating and have a great day.